Our final presenter today is Ray Anthony. Ray is a consultant who's worked with the Cowichan Intercultural Society on a number of diversity education projects aimed at building bridges in the Cowichan region. So Ray, as a non-First Nation person, he's very grateful for being accepted into the Child and Youth Care First Nations program offered by the Vancouver Island University. In the program, he learned about traditional practices and protocols often taught firsthand by Cowichan elders. That's an amazing learning experience there. Ray has also worked internationally with Indigenous people, and he strives to weave these rich experiences into his practice. So Ray will be, oh my goodness me, I should have practiced that one. Ray will tell you the title of his presentation himself, because I didn't pay attention to practice that. In English, it's The People of a Warm Land Welcome You.
I had it phonetically for you there.
Oh, I don't have the phonetical version of it. Oops.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, the title is it's in Hwulmuhw. I had to visit Florence James, a kind elder in the Cowichan yesterday, to help me with the pronunciation as well. So please, no offense intended. Shhweenustham ata Quw'utsun Hwulmuhw. Hopefully I did well, Florence, there. I'd like to acknowledge certainly the Coast Salish territory that we're on, and I'd really like to thank AMSA as well. I know us over on Vancouver Island in a smaller community, we don't often get to come to a lot of these events, so I know we have lots of people in the office that tune into these, so we really appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge the Vancouver Canucks last night. I was quite, not just as a hockey fan, but I was a little nervous about what it would be like to fly into Vancouver today had the unspeakable occurred. Didn't help me prepare for my presentation going into overtime, but it helped me sleep a little bit better. I really like to thank AMSA again for asking me to come over and speak. Being able to review and reflect upon our experiences with the North American Indigenous Games that happened in 2008. You know, going through, spending a day going through photographs and reliving those experiences was absolutely wonderful. It didn't help productivity because I really spent a lot of time sort of spending time with all those photos and memories. A little bit about where we're from. So I'm from the Cowichan Valley region. That's over on Vancouver Island. This region is composed of 11 different communities, roughly around 75,000 total population. It's very spread out. The main centers are Duncan, and that's where the Cowichan Intercultural Society is located, and North Cowichan. Between the two, about 28,000 people. Within our region, we're very fortunate. We have 6 First Nations, including Cowichan tribes, which is the largest single nation in British Columbia with a little over 3,800 registered members, about half of which live on reserve. Up until recently, the Cowichan region has really been kind of known as the two Cowichan, so sort of, you know, the First Nations Cowichan and the non-First Nations Cowichan. And up until recently, I'll say, so I'm happy to report that. The Cowichan Intercultural Society has been around for 30 years. We're just celebrating our 30-year anniversary. And it was formed really by a group of concerned community citizens when the first Vietnamese refugees were coming over. Some citizens really just wanted to get together and support them, and that became formalized with what today we know as the Cowichan Intercultural Society. Great. So certainly, you know, for most of that 30 years, we've been, you know, a traditional sort of settlement service provider, providing some of the typical settlement programs that you see up there today. And certainly in the last 10 years, you've really seen a shift in the Intercultural Society not move away, but add a diversity education component to it. Some that now is happily supported by the provincial government, and many of our service providers are providing these. You know, like the community bridging program, which matches newcomer families with volunteer families. Canadian Connections being a tutoring program. Safe Harbor, I think we've seen that all over. From Far and Wide is a recent one that we've had. That's it's a DVD and a booklet that examines the history of immigration in the Cowichan region. The Multicultural Leadership Group, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Creating Our Home, Community Dialogues, ABC Diversity, those are most recent, and then Inclusive Leadership Adventures, which I'll tell you about. So that was started in 2002. So in the last 10 years, and really the person that's been doing this work and that should be speaking here today is my mentor, is Dr. Linda Hill, who some of you may recognize. Linda's out there. I'm hoping I'm going to do your work justice here. So Linda brought over 30 years of her work to the Intercultural Society in a bridge building model that she founded Inclusive Leadership Adventures. And that was in 2002. Inclusive Leadership Adventures, they're multi-day intercultural, intergenerational gatherings of 40 to 50 people. And we'll just go through some slides here. Intergenerational, so we certainly have all ages that come, young and old alike. And it is a lot of fun. So that's really around experiential education. So we go over skills like compassionate communication, shared leadership, cooperative games. We meet in heart-to-heart groups, anti-discrimination first aid, and yeah, certainly lots of fun. And we'll just go through some of the photos here, as the pictures can explain it better than I can. As I had mentioned, Linda Hill had developed this building bridges model that is used at ILAs, and we apply it to so many projects, from very tiny projects to massive, big projects, and it works. It's magic. It seems like magic when you're at one of these weekends, but it really does work. We also have summer institutes. This year it's in the fall, where you can come and actually learn about this process. And I've left pamphlets outside, so I really encourage you to take part in it. Lots of fun. And it really allows participants to explore diversity in a very safe way. Certainly the Intercultural Society takes the Hastings Institute of definition of cultural diversity much beyond just ethnicity. So anyone who's really kind of maybe feeling excluded from the community, we really try to build bridges to that person. It's an amazing sort of place that we get together up at Lake Cowichan. The food is fantastic, and we actually stay together for 3 days, so we're spending a lot of time together. We're coming there as kind of strangers from all walks of life, and by the end of the weekend, we're quite close. So a big thing that towards the end of it is about action planning. So there, each individual is encouraged to take their learning and create an action plan of what does that mean, and how to use these changes. So these action plans, people are taking it back to their family, to their schools, to their communities and their workplaces. So you can definitely see the ripple effect in action. These are just some of the groups over the years. So Dr. Hill started this in 2002. It's now 2011. Typically there's one in the springtime that's kind of youth focused, and one in the fall, as well as the advanced training in the summer, late or early fall as well. So a lot of people who have been trained, skilled in intercultural communication and sensitivities. And these are just a few over the years. And going through this, I was just really impressed by Linda's work. I've been fortunate to experience about 6 of these. Although the model is always the same, it's always different because it's different people coming in. But the magical outcome is always the same. So 6 years of inclusive leadership adventures equals lots of potential volunteers. So in 2007, when the North American Indigenous Games were announced that they'd be coming to Cowichan, 3,000 volunteers were needed, and that's a pretty big number for a small community like ours. It really provided a fantastic opportunity, I think, certainly for Cowichan Intercultural Society, we have all these wonderful trained volunteers and how to put them to action. So we approached the steering committee, the organizers, right away to how we could get involved, especially with youth. There was a bit of a problem in that, liability and whatnot, that their capacity to take volunteers under 16, it just wasn't possible. They had a cap there. So that's really where the Intercultural Society came in, is we were able to develop a memorandum of understanding with NAIG. And basically we looked after making sure that youth could become involved in this, because it was a huge opportunity for our community. So Cowichan Intercultural Society came together in 3 main ways for it. Certainly you see Dr. Hill there in the middle, and she's always in the middle of this stuff. She became on board as a team leader. So they developed workshops to train. We're going to obviously be bringing together volunteers from the non-First Nations and First Nations community in ways that they'd never been together before, which was an incredible opportunity, but we also recognized that there could be some challenges because people had never came before in this way. As I'd mentioned, it was we were known as the 2 Cowichan's. So they developed a workshop called Quw'utsun, and basically means working together, coming together as one. We trained over 400 plus volunteers that were going to be volunteering. It was largely a culturally based workshop, exploring. So this is one of them there. Also exploring, it was very important, as we heard earlier, a lot of people have never heard the history, didn't learn it in school, and maybe didn't have that opportunity to hear it. So we felt that was very important. So certainly a big part of these workshops were to explore the history of the difficult relations. All these workshops were done in the spirit of Quw'utsun, being one mind, one heart, and one spirit. Again, pardon my poor Hwulmuhw. Part of it was a blanketing ceremony at the end as well. And there was a timeline as well, so people were encouraged to explore that and have meaningful discussion around that. And really it was about, beginning relationships, so relationship building and trust building. The next big way that we became involved, especially the youth, was we established a volunteer drop-in, which I was fortunate to coordinate. So we started 16 weeks before the actual games began, and we met weekly to make gifts as giveaways for not just at the games, but there was also Tribal Journeys was part of it, and that was basically a large First Nations canoe gathering coming from all up and down the coast. The biggest ever was over 80 boats there, absolutely incredible. So I had the fortune of engaging and finding local elders that would come in each week and share teachings with us and how to make crafts. So that's basically what we did. So we were able to bring our newcomers, all of the youth that we work with, everyone together and make gifts to give away, which was inherent in Cowichan traditions and of the spirit of gift giving, and allowed us to just get together in new ways. And it was really amazing. We had probably over 100 people that participated in the 16 weeks. I think this was really powerful from a lot of the elders too, to come and see this level of cooperation. We got a lot of positive feedback there as well. They made over 1,000 giveaways, 1,000 gifts of the 3,000 gifts that were given away to Tribal Journey participants and NAIG participants, 1,000 gifts. Those are some mini drums that we made. This is a lady from Italy, actually, and she came to Canada. Her name is Liliana, and I hope I pronounced her last name right, Ruggio, and she was a graduate student from anthropology from Sardinia, Italy, who came to Canada in 2008 to study multiculturalism and indigenous cultures. And this is an essay that she wrote about her experiences. So she just happened to be visiting the Quw'utsun Cultural Center where we were holding this drop-in. You know, it's a bit of an attraction in our community, and we happened to be there, and she sort of just stumbled upon us. And it doesn't translate perfectly from Italian into English, but bear with me. I saw some children running to catch each other. One was white, one was Aboriginal. I discovered an hour later they were members of the Intercultural Society of Duncan that was working with the Volunteer Center, preparing potlatch gifts for the Cowichan 2008 North American Indigenous Games. From that imagine, I had the feeling to have arrived in a town very peculiar. I met the Cowichan Intercultural Society for a blessed chance. I approached the room in which the Intercultural Society was working, thinking it was a room of the museum. I asked, "Is this a room of the museum?" A tall boy with a wonderful smile answers me, "Not exactly," and he invites me to enter anyway and see what is going on. I suddenly find myself welcomed from a very heterogeneous group for age and ethnicity. In 2 minutes, I was one more of the group. It was very natural to sit and have something to do, but when I left the group 2 hours later, I thought, how is it possible these persons make me feel so naturally integrated and welcomed? I came back to the motel feeling very full of positive energy. During the days spent with the Intercultural Society, she spent about 3 weeks with us. She extended her trip and visited our group every week. I could definitely see what happens when cultures are getting to know each other. Definitely this journey to Canada has changed a lot in my way to see the world. And even now I've come back to Sardinia and Italy, I can't see the world in the same way anymore. About the methodology that the Intercultural Society uses during its meeting, I appreciate the ideas of the circles to share impressions and the concept of leadership. One of the problems of our society is the rush and the incapacity to stop and think in what we are doing. The idea to do a circle all together is in part to be an occasion for sharing ideas and feelings, and is a way to teach youth to stop and think what they're doing. I'll jump ahead a little bit. The summit of the intercultural mix was during the drumming night. In fact, I thought the Intercultural Society was an exception to a general situation in which people from different cultures ignore each other. But that night I could discover that the whole town of Duncan was very intercultural. 100 and more drums were drumming, played by many Duncanians, including the mayor. In that atmosphere, you stopped thinking that in the room there were different ethnicities. There were people enjoying the magic of the dancing. During the drumming night, I was very impressed also by the relationships between the elders and young people. Before arriving in the hall, Linda explained to the children that they have to serve dinner to the elders, and they are so very happy to do so. I perceive the group as a big family. An African proverb says, to grow up a child, a whole village is needed. One of the problems of our society is that the village has been substituted by television. The parents are left alone in growing up their children. Duncan's children, luckily, are not in this situation. They have a great village in the Intercultural Society that takes care of them. The idea that adults help youth even if the youth is not related by blood with them is very important. Youth need all wisdom of a society, and the parents cannot be depository of all this wisdom. A child must learn from different people and different identities to complete his or her identity. I think the Intercultural Society is doing a really great job, and I'm always grateful to learn with you. I just wanted to share that. Thank you. And did I mention a lot of fun? So the last way that we were able to participate is actually volunteering at the games. So this was all leading up to the games. So we had the green team, although I did bring everyone was the blue shirts. So this was an amazing visual around Duncan to see 3,000 volunteers walking around with these shirts, and it was a very visual way to see the type of sharing that was going on. Anyway, we were responsible for taking care of the cultural village. Green team, so we were doing garbage and recycling and whatnot. We had a one-day training leading up to this that we had over 60 60 youth and 20 adults come to the training, one-day training. There's the blue shirts. And this is us actually working at the games. So although the games were only a week, they lasted a lot before. Tribal Journeys came in about a month beforehand. And we're certainly still feeling the effects of the games today. It allowed us to come together in a way that we've never come before, build relationships, build trust. Again, as I said, in the spirit of not so much Quw'utsun, you know, one mind, one heart, one spirit. As we also took advantage of the fact that we were doing the recycling, so we were taking this at the end of the day, and we raised $600 that we were able to send youth to these inclusive leadership adventures. This was a young person from the Yukon had actually heard about the games, and he wanted to come down all on his own to volunteer at the games, and then found out that, again, he couldn't volunteer. Happily, he was referred to us, so we happily welcomed him down, and he's an amazing fiddle player, so we, in addition to helping out with the green team, we got him some fiddling duty there too, so there he is in action. And we have just a short, a bit of a trailer of a documentary, of a longer documentary that you can see the whole one if you would like.
This walk that we did today was really just an opportunity for us to get together, but it reminds me of the teachings of our people and the teachings that bring us together as humanity. And just today walking each step with love and compassion, understanding that we all come together with our different views and our different ideas, but recognizing we're all still brothers and sisters in humanity. And this is just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us to celebrate that.
It's beyond time that our community banded together and walked together, laughed together, eat together, enjoy each other as people, as humanity. So I was really pleased to see the Walk of Nations being organized, and it gave us an opportunity to follow along with some of the very goodwill and the spirit that was generated by the North American Indigenous Games.
Through these games, we've forever changed attitudes, the way we work with one another, the way we relate to one another. We built bridges, not physical infrastructure, we'll call it cultural or human infrastructure that far outlasts bricks and mortar. Congratulations, Cowichan.
Community of Cowichan Valley, whatever comes out that gate, let's stay together. God bless you.
I said to deliver the best ever North American Indigenous Game.
That's the long version. The full video is quite fantastic, and I can give you information on how to find that after. You can look up walkinations.com. Kind of lost the slideshow there a little bit, but bear with me because we're almost done here. So Cowichan, since the 2008 North American Indigenous Games, so you've seen one project, the Walk of the Nations. So that's happened 3 years. We had over 900 people the first year, and that's a 2-day celebration, which has been quite fantastic. Also, we've seen some meaningful local government representation. So the City of Duncan has had its first ever elected First Nations councillor. The municipality of North Cowichan, which is our adjacent community, has a First Nations councillor from Cowichan tribes. And we've also seen the election of a school district trustee, which has come a long ways to ensure a lot more meaningful participation. We've seen the Cowichan Cultural Connections Committee. That's sort of all layers of government, nonprofits, business, all working together. The Intercultural Society, since the 2008 North American Indigenous Games, certainly we've carried on. This is community dialogue, so we've had 3 years of community dialogues. The multicultural leadership group, so that youth drop-in that you saw, there was such a demand for it after that people didn't want to stop even though the games were over. So really happy to report that 3 years later that group is still going, so we keep finding funding for that group. They get together now and they support, those were signs that they had made for the Walk of Nations, and they basically support any sort of community events. We've also seen that there's this willingness to come together now and this actually desire to come together since the games. Even in the face of tragedy, this is a group of three brothers that were subject to a vicious assault, and it was definitely racially motivated. There was a big fear in the community that this might undermine everything that we'd sort of came to realize through the games. We got together with the local friendship center and organized a healing circle, and we're amazed. It wasn't publicized or anything, but people found out, and over 300 people came from the community, and it turned out to be an amazingly powerful, positive experience. And these 3 boys, I think their healing was helped by that, and they're all volunteers with the Intercultural Society now too. Maybe you've heard in the paper about Taisha Jones. We just lost recently an 18-year-old girl from the Cowichan tribes community was murdered. Obviously, the community's still in mourning today, and the community stepped forward and really wanted to support the family. This is a walk that got generated. Our group got together and made lanterns for this walk, and we saw even on a very freezing cold night, there was over 2,000 people from our community that walked together. I think in the Intercultural Society, that's my Auntie Florence there. She's the elder in residence at Vancouver Island University. That certainly guided me throughout my education, and I've had the pleasure of having her on my planning committee guiding my projects over the last few years. All of the coordinators at the Intercultural Society really attempt to try to have someone on the planning committee from, especially we're very fortunate if we can have an elder to guide us through, especially around a lot of the protocols, so we can ensure that there's meaningful participation versus tokenism, even at best, even with best intentions, sometimes it can appear as tokenism. So through learning about protocols, like just simply how to invite someone, that it needs to happen in person. And we also have been very fortunate to have Gus Williams on our board of directors, so definitely guides everything that happens at the Intercultural Society. And Gus is going through some hard times right now, so we certainly send our thoughts out to Gus. So I guess just to finish, I asked Linda Hill, who's a mentor of mine and really spearheaded so much of this work, what she thought about the North American Indigenous Games and why, it wasn't the sports. Why was that such an effective way for us to come together? And she really felt that it was this neutral focus, something that allowed us to, not put behind, but for that moment to leave those places of, obviously we've heard some of the stories, years and years and years will not heal overnight, but just that it gave us for that moment to be able to just walk away from that program and to come together in a commonality, and it was a powerful way. We saw 3,000 people come together, work together, and it was really an amazing collaboration. Asking Auntie Florence yesterday, I met with her and asked her, and she shared with me a story about how Indigenous games traditionally were that when different nations came, and maybe there could have been strained relations at that time as well, is that when people came, the differences were left aside, and I think we heard earlier of the importance of being a good host, and that could mean even where there is difficult relations of welcoming someone into your house, into the longhouse, and being a good host. And she talked about the hook, and that's what I thought was interesting, the hook outside a longhouse door where everyone could leave their pain or their emotional attachments or things, you know, that they needed to leave to be able to do the important work of being able to open their hearts and be together. And after, you know, if that person felt it necessary to pick that up and take it with them, they could, or they could, maybe that the work and that coming together negated the reason to leave that on the hook. And yeah.